Before this speech ends, you will either stay the same or you will decide to think bigger and live greater. The choice is yours. Most people are not limited by lack of talent. They are limited by the size of their thinking. You were not born to survive. You were born to expand. Right now, there is a bigger version of you waiting on the other side of a decision to stop playing small, stop waiting for permission, and stop shrinking your dreams to fit other people's comfort zones. If your goals don't scare you, they are too small. If your vision doesn't demand growth, it's not your true vision. Thinking bigger is not about arrogance. It's about alignment, aligning your actions with your potential. When you think bigger, you speak differently. You walk differently. You stop asking, can I? And start asking, how fast can I? But thinking bigger is only the first step. To live greater, you must act greater. Discipline is the bridge between dreams and reality. Consistency is the language success understands, and courage is built every time you choose progress over comfort. Your past does not define you. Your fear does not control you. Your environment does not decide your future. You decide. Every morning you wake up with two choices: repeat yesterday or create something greater. Raise your standards, upgrade your habits, protect your energy, demand more from yourself, not because you are not enough, but because you are capable of more. The world doesn't reward excuses, it rewards action. Think bigger than your doubts, live greater than your circumstances. Because the moment you expand your mindset, your life has no choice but to expand with it. Most people go through life believing their limits are real, fixed, and unchangeable. But the truth is, the greatest limits you will ever experience are not imposed by the world around you. They are created in your own mind, long before circumstances, resources, or opportunities stop you. A silent internal voice decides what is possible and what is not. That voice is shaped by past experiences, failures, opinions of others, and moments where you tried and fell short. Over time, those moments turn into beliefs, and those beliefs quietly dictate the size of your life. When someone says, I can't, what they are really saying is, I've decided not to try beyond what feels safe. The mind is designed to protect you, not to push you toward growth. It seeks comfort, familiarity, and certainty, but growth lives in uncertainty. Every breakthrough in history began as an idea that sounded unrealistic, unreasonable, or impossible to the average thinker. Small thinking keeps you trapped in cycles of predictability, while expanded thinking opens doors you didn't even know existed. Your mind constantly looks for evidence to support what you already believe. If you believe success is hard, you will notice obstacles. If you believe you are not talented enough, you will notice others doing better than you. This is not reality, this is focus. And focus is power. Whatever you consistently focus on becomes your experience. When you shift your focus from limitations to possibilities, your perception changes, and with it, your behavior changes. Most people underestimate how much potential they leave unused simply because they never question their own assumptions. They assume their intelligence is fixed, their personality is set, and their circumstances define their ceiling. But human capacity is not fixed. It is expandable. The brain adapts, skills can be learned, confidence can be built, and identity can be reshaped. The moment you challenge the story you've been telling yourself, you begin to rewrite the direction of your life. Small thinking shows up in subtle ways. It sounds like waiting for the perfect time, needing more approval, or avoiding failure at all costs. It feels like settling for good enough instead of pursuing what truly excites you. Over time, this kind of thinking shrinks ambition and numbs desire. You stop dreaming, not because you lack imagination, but because you've trained yourself to avoid disappointment. When you expand your thinking, discomfort becomes a signal for growth rather than a warning to retreat. You begin to see challenges as training instead of threats. Fear doesn't disappear, but it loses its authority. You start asking better questions. Not what if I fail, but what if I grow? Not am I ready, but who will I become by trying? Your results will never exceed the size of your self-image. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your beliefs. When you change how you see yourself, your actions naturally follow. Bigger thinking doesn't require more resources. It requires more courage to challenge the invisible walls you've been living inside. Big visions do not come from comfort. They come from moments when you decide to step beyond what feels familiar. Every meaningful expansion in life begins with a choice, not a perfect plan, not guaranteed results, but a decision to move forward despite uncertainty. Bold decisions are rarely logical to the outside world. They often look risky, unreasonable, or premature. But growth has never been about waiting until you feel ready. It has always been about acting before confidence shows up. A big vision demands that you leave behind the version of yourself that is attached to safety. Safety feels good, but it also keeps you predictable. When you choose the familiar path, you get familiar results. When you choose the bold path, you invite transformation. This is why so many people talk about their dreams but never live them. They want change without disruption, success without sacrifice, and progress without discomfort. But expansion requires friction. Without pressure, there is no evolution. Every bold decision carries fear, and that fear is not a sign that something is wrong. It is evidence that you are standing at the edge of growth. Fear appears when identity is about to change. The mind resists because it knows that once you step forward, there is no going back to who you were. Bold decisions challenge your habits, your routines, and even the relationships you've built around your old identity. Growth forces you to renegotiate who you are and what you stand for. Waiting for certainty is one of the most expensive mistakes people make. Clarity comes after action, not before it. Momentum creates belief. When you act boldly, you collect evidence that you are capable of more than you imagined. Each courageous step expands your tolerance for risk and strengthens your trust in yourself. Over time, what once felt terrifying becomes normal, and your capacity continues to grow. Big visions also demand responsibility. When you commit to something greater, excuses lose their power. You stop blaming circumstances and start owning outcomes. This shift is uncomfortable because it removes the safety net of external blame, but it is also empowering. Responsibility puts you back in control. It turns you from a passive observer of your life into an active creator of it. Bold decisions often require letting go of approval. Not everyone will understand your vision, and many will project their own fears onto your choices. If you rely on validation, your growth will always be limited by the smallest mindset in the room. Leadership begins when you are willing to be misunderstood. The path to something extraordinary is rarely crowded, and that loneliness is not a punishment. It is a price. When you choose boldly, you send a powerful message to yourself. You declare that your vision is worth the risk, that your future is more important than your comfort, and that growth is no longer optional. Bold decisions create identity shifts, and identity shifts create lasting change. The life you desire does not respond to hesitation, it responds to courage. The moment you decide to think bigger, something subtle but powerful begins to change inside you. It is not just your goals that expand, but your sense of who you are. Identity is the lens through which you experience life, and every action you take flows from how you see yourself. When you believe more is possible, you stop behaving like someone who is waiting for permission and start behaving like someone who expects results. This internal shift happens long before external success appears. Yet it is the foundation for everything that follows. Your identity shapes your standards. When you see yourself as capable, resilient, and driven, you naturally refuse to tolerate habits, environments, and conversations that pull you backward. You begin to protect your time and energy because they are no longer disposable. Small distractions lose their appeal, and excuses feel uncomfortable. This is not forced discipline, it is alignment. Your actions change because they no longer match the person you are becoming. Thinking bigger also changes how you interpret challenges. Instead of seeing obstacles as signs to stop, you view them as confirmation that you are moving into unfamiliar territory. Difficulty becomes feedback rather than failure. You stop taking setbacks personally and start treating them as data. This mindset creates emotional strength. You recover faster, adapt quicker, and stay focused longer because your identity is no longer tied to short-term outcomes. Language is another area where identity reveals itself. When your thinking expands, the way you speak changes. You move from tentative language to intentional language. You stop saying I hope and start saying I will. You stop framing your goals as wishes and start treating them as commitments. This shift influences how others respond to you, but more importantly, it reinforces how you see yourself. Words repeated consistently become beliefs, and beliefs shape behavior. Your posture, presence, and energy also evolve. You carry yourself differently when you believe in your direction. Confidence becomes quieter but stronger. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself because your actions speak for you. This inner certainty creates influence. People sense when someone is aligned with their vision, and that alignment builds trust, leadership, and momentum. Thinking bigger forces you to confront old identities that no longer serve you. You may realize that some of your past behaviors were survival strategies, not reflections of your true potential. Letting go of these patterns can feel uncomfortable because they once kept you safe. But safety is not the same as fulfillment. Growth requires releasing the familiar so you can step into something more honest and expansive. As your identity shifts, Consistency becomes easier. You no longer rely on motivation because your actions are rooted in who you believe you are. A person who identifies as disciplined shows up even when it's inconvenient. A person who identifies as a leader acts with integrity even when no one is watching. When behavior matches identity, progress becomes sustainable. This is why lasting change never starts with tactics alone. It starts with self-perception. When you upgrade how you see yourself, your actions rise to meet that image naturally, without force or resistance. Greatness is not created in moments of excitement. It is built in moments of repetition. Discipline and consistency are often misunderstood because they don't feel glamorous. They don't create instant results or dramatic breakthroughs overnight. Instead, they quietly compound over time, shaping character before they shape outcomes. Motivation may spark the desire to start, but it is discipline that carries you forward when enthusiasm fades and resistance appears. Motivation is emotional, and emotions are temporary. Some days you feel inspired, confident, and driven. Other days you feel tired, uncertain, or distracted. If your progress depends on how you feel, your results will always be unstable. Discipline removes emotion from the equation. It is the ability to act according to commitment rather than comfort. Consistency turns that discipline into a system, ensuring that progress continues regardless of mood or circumstance. Every habit you repeat sends a message to your identity. When you show up consistently, even in small ways, you reinforce trust in yourself. Self-trust is one of the most powerful forces in personal growth. It strengthens confidence, not through affirmations, but through evidence. Each disciplined action becomes proof that you can rely on yourself, and that proof changes how you approach bigger challenges. Consistency also builds momentum. Small actions repeated daily create a rhythm that carries you forward. At first, progress feels slow and almost invisible. This is where most people quit. They mistake the absence of immediate results for failure. But success operates on a delayed response. The effort you invest today is often rewarded weeks, months, or even years later. Those who understand this principle stay the course while others give up prematurely. Discipline is not about restriction, it is about freedom. When you control your habits, you gain control over your future. Without discipline, life becomes reactive, driven by impulses, distractions, and external demands. With discipline, you become intentional. You decide in advance what matters and act accordingly. This clarity reduces stress and increases focus because your energy is no longer scattered. Consistency also strengthens resilience. When obstacles appear, disciplined individuals don't collapse, they adjust. They don't look for excuses to stop. They look for ways to continue. This adaptability is what separates long-term success from short-lived effort. Discipline teaches you to honor commitments even when conditions are imperfect, and that skill translates into every area of life. Over time, disciplined action reshapes self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and starts over. You begin to see yourself as someone who finishes, follows through, and persists. This identity shift fuels further consistency, creating a powerful cycle of growth. What once required effort becomes automatic. What once felt difficult becomes part of who you are. Motivation opens the door, but discipline keeps it open. Consistency transforms intention into reality, one repeated action at a time. Many people live as if their past has final authority over their future. Old mistakes, missed opportunities, and painful experiences become mental anchors, quietly pulling them backward even as they try to move forward. The past can feel heavy because it is familiar, and familiarity often feels safer than possibility. But the truth is, the past only has the power you continue to give it. It cannot make decisions for you, and it cannot dictate what you choose next. Your experiences may have shaped you, but they do not define you. There is a difference between learning from the past and living inside it. Learning brings wisdom. Living inside it creates limitation. When you constantly replay what went wrong, you train your mind to expect the same outcomes. This expectation influences your behavior, often without you realizing it. You hesitate, second guess, and avoid risks not because you are incapable, but because you are trying to protect yourself from repeating old pain. Choice is the most underused power most people have. You may not be able to control everything that happens to you, but you can always control how you respond. Each moment offers a new decision point. You can act from fear or from intention. You can react automatically or respond consciously. These small choices, repeated over time, shape direction more than any single event ever could. Blaming the past can feel comforting because it removes responsibility. If circumstances are the problem, then change feels out of reach, but responsibility, while uncomfortable, is empowering. The moment you take ownership of your choices, you regain control over your future. Ownership does not mean denying hardship or pretending pain didn't exist. It means refusing to let those experiences dictate what you believe is possible now. Forgiveness plays a critical role in reclaiming choice. This includes forgiving others and forgiving yourself. Holding on to resentment or regret keeps you emotionally tied to moments that no longer serve you. Forgiveness is not about approval. It is about release. It creates space for new decisions, new perspectives, and new actions. Without that release, growth remains restricted by unresolved emotion. When you recognize that your future is created through daily choices, your focus shifts from what happened to what you are building. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what am I going to do next? This shift changes energy, posture, and behavior. You move from victimhood to agency, from reaction to intention. Every choice reinforces identity. When you choose discipline over distraction, courage over comfort, and growth over familiarity, you strengthen the version of yourself that moves forward. Over time, these choices compound into confidence. You no longer see yourself as someone trapped by history, but as someone capable of creating change. The past can inform you, but it does not control you. Control lives in the present, in the decisions you make when no one is watching, and in the standards you choose to uphold each day. Standards quietly shape the direction of your life. They influence what you tolerate, what you accept, and what you walk away from. Many people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because their standards are too low. They accept excuses, allow distractions, and settle for comfort, not realizing that what you tolerate becomes your normal. When you raise your standards, you change what feels acceptable, and that shift alone can transform your results. Raising standards is not about perfection or comparison with others. It is about deciding what level of behavior, effort, and integrity you will no longer negotiate. When your standards increase, your choices change automatically. You stop cutting corners because they no longer align with how you see yourself. You stop waiting for external pressure because internal expectations become stronger. This creates consistency without force and discipline without resentment. Higher standards also redefine your relationship with effort. You no longer do the minimum required. You do what is required to win. This does not mean working endlessly or burning out. It means working with intention and focus. You begin to value quality over convenience and long-term progress over short-term rely. EF. This mindset separates growth-oriented individuals from those who remain stuck in cycles of average results. Your environment is directly influenced by your standards. When you demand more from yourself, you naturally seek surroundings that support growth. You become selective about the conversations you engage in, the information you consume, and the people you allow influence over your mindset. This selectivity is not arrogance, it is awareness. You recognize that energy is finite and where you invest it matters. Raising standards also exposes resistance. Old habits push back. Comfort tries to negotiate. Doubt questions whether the effort is worth it. This resistance is not a sign to stop. It is evidence that change is occurring. Every time you hold your standard instead of lowering it, you strengthen self-respect. Self-respect becomes the fuel for confidence, and confidence reinforces higher standards in return. Higher standards shift your emotional baseline. You stop tolerating inconsistency, both from yourself and from others. You hold yourself accountable without self-criticism and demand excellence without harshness. This balance creates sustainable growth. You push forward while remaining grounded, ambitious without being destructive. As standards rise, excuses lose their power. You stop justifying missed commitments and start correcting behavior. You become solution-focused instead of problem-focused. This change in mindset increases effectiveness because your energy moves toward progress rather than explanation. Life responds to the level of standards you set. When you demand more from yourself, you show the world how to treat you. Opportunities align with clarity, and progress accelerates with expectation. By raising your standards, you don't just change what you do, you change who you become. The truth is, everything you want already exists on the other side of expansion. Expansion of thought, expansion of courage, expansion of standards. The moment you stop negotiating with your limits, life starts responding to your decisions. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need validation to begin. You only need the willingness to step forward even when certainty is missing. Thinking bigger is not a one-time event. It is a daily commitment. Living greater is not about perfection. It is about progress. There will be days when it feels uncomfortable, when fear speaks louder than faith, and when the old version of you tries to pull you back. In those moments, remember this: discomfort is not the enemy. Stagnation is. You are not here to live an average life filled with untapped potential and unanswered dreams. You are here to rise, to stretch, and to become more than yesterday. Every choice you make from this moment forward is a vote for the person you are becoming. Choose courage over comfort. Choose growth over familiarity. Choose standards that reflect the future you desire, not the past you survived. When you think bigger, you give yourself permission to see possibilities instead of limitations. When you live greater, you turn those possibilities into reality through action. The world doesn't change when you wait, it changes when you decide. So take that step, make that decision, raise that standard, because the greatest gift you can give the world is not your comfort, it is your full potential. Thank you for giving me your time, your attention, and your energy. If something you heard today challenged you, inspired you, or pushed you to reflect, don't let it stay as a thought. Turn it into action. Go forward with clarity. Go forward with courage. Go forward thinking bigger and living greater. Thank you and goodbye.